Ticket number 12 is in.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Cover One, the podcast. I am Russell Brown, and alongside me, my co-host, as always, Brad Kelly. Brad, how you doing, man?
I'm good. I had a flag football game tonight. I had 4 touchdowns, if the viewers are wondering. I had the first 3 of the game. We got a win, so I'm flying pretty high at the moment.
Nice. I mean, you're living out the glory days. Did you drive your Corvette there or anything? Or
Yeah, my Jeep Liberty 2007. Made it back and forth.
Nice. Did you stop at 7-Eleven on the way?
I stopped at Cumberland Farms on the way home.
What is that? Is that like a Rhode Island thing?
Oh, yeah. I don't know if it is or not.
I don't know what that is, bro.
Yeah, it's another gas station. But no 7-Eleven hamburgers this time.
All right. I'm sorry.
I think that's a one-time experience.
I think I ruined it. I put you on blast on Twitter, and everybody kind of found out about your secret. It's all good. But ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podcast, episode 48. The NFL Scouting Combine is in the books. It's officially done. And before we get into it, I want to let you know, Cover One, the podcast is brought to you by First Down Playbook. First Down Playbook is the #1 playbook resource for football coaches with over 30,000 plays. First Down Playbook is a database of youth, high school, and flag football plays color-coded with coaching points for every position on every play. Check it out today at firstdownplaybook.com. First Down Playbook, one place, all the football. So you might be noticing I'm talking pretty clear right now, and that's because I've stepped up the podcast game with a brand new microphone, and this thing is absolute, as the kids call it today, fire. It's lit. So this epi is going to be badass.
I'm still working with just the laptop, so if you hear any sound quality issues, it's Brad's fault. Blame me.
It's all your fault. Well, I mean, everything that we come across is your fault. From wide receiver one takes to subtweeting, it's your fault, bro.
You're not wrong right now.
But anyways, everything is done with the Combine. And I do want to say, before we get into the full results on stuff, I need to say that, you know what? If you're like draft board, your rankings and everything is changing and fluctuating so much because of the Combine, you just need to stop doing the draft altogether. Like, there's going to be players that we're going to talk about and how we should probably revisit them and take a look at them a little bit more film and see, maybe plug in some of their bad games and see, does that reflect at all to the Combine? But realistically, the Combine is just the athletic part of being a football player. And we all know that. But if you're not trusting the film and you're only trusting the Combine, I'm sorry, you're doing it wrong. Now, I think there's going to be a couple of players that after the Combine, they boosted their stocks without question, and that always happens every year. Guys go from being a borderline first rounder to a sure thing first rounder. Some guys go from top 25 to top 15. Certain guys go from third round to second round, and some guys go from UDFAs to late day 3 picks. So these guys all did themselves either a favor or a disservice by the way they performed at the Combine on either Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Monday. And today we finished up with defensive backs and altogether corners and safeties. But, you know, Sunday we saw edge guys and defensive tackles, linebackers, and then Saturday was quarterbacks, receivers, and tight ends, which was, I thought, a pretty good day. And we'll probably get into a lot of those guys because you're the receiver guy. And then running backs, offensive linemen, and the special teams guys were on Friday. So let's just start with wherever you want to go. I mean, who's a guy that really stood out to you through the first couple of days of the Combine?
Well, as far as the receivers go, a few of the bigger guys had pretty good days. And even it was some guys that I really wasn't expecting it from. So Cortland Sutton, he had a very good all-around Combine. And when watching him on film, I did think he was a little bit stiffer and more rigid in his hips than other bigger receivers. So I was surprised that his agility drills were so good. And then Equan Emius, I think I'm saying that right.
ESB from Notre Dame.
Yes, ESB from Notre Dame. On film, he could move. He really could move. So I'm not surprised by his agility skills, but his size was up. So when he weighed in, he gained 12 or 11 or 12 pounds since the season started. I wasn't quite expecting him to be as athletic, but he obviously put on good weight because he could move and it showed up in his Combine scores. But one guy that I want to touch on is Dylan Cantrell out of Texas Tech. big body, big frame. And I mentioned him before as a guy who I was definitely going to keep an eye on. But he's 6'3", 226, which is a very good frame. He was slower in the 40 than average in the high 4.5s. But when you're 226 pounds as a receiver, that's you kind of expect that. But what stood out is vertical jump over 38 inches, broad jump 130 inches, which is 10'10", 6.563 cone, which
ridiculous.
Going into today was the best 3 cone draw at the combine. I don't know if any of the corners beat it, but going into the day, he had the fastest of all the receivers at 6'3". You know what I mean? Fast 20-yard shuttle, 98th percentile 20-yard shuttle, 70th percentile on the bench press, 18 reps. I mean, when it comes to his vertical, his broad, his 3 cone, his shuttle, and his bench, he was 78th percentile or higher on all of them, on top of being 6'3", 226. So I've gone back and watched him in the last 2 nights, and I like what I see out of him. I think you can tell that he isn't a speedy guy, and they did have speed with QT in the slot at Texas Tech, but he is a guy who uses his frame well. I think high points the ball well. He's very good, like pretty much as a rebounder. You know, he has a basketball background, and it shows. And he's a willing blocker. I mean, he is all over the place blocking. They put him at H-back and send him in motion.
Yeah,
it's like this. Like they scheme him up to block, which I like. I like how he's a team player. So I'm definitely excited to watch a little bit more of him. I'll be close to done with a grade for him, but I would say he would be the big winner among the receivers.
For sure. And the 3 cone drill, JT Thomas from Oklahoma posted a 6.28 today.
That is absurd.
That's absurd. But he did only have 4 reps in the bench, and he weighed in at 187 pounds, 6 foot, 4.6, 640. So his official
4
time.
reps on the bench, that's terrible.
Yeah, well, I mean, Henry Tolliver from Arkansas only had 6. So, I mean, corners, I guess, these thin-framed corners, and they're both like similar in height and weight too, 188 pounds. So that makes sense. But you talked about Cantrell, and it's interesting because you just brought up the fact of him being an H-back and kind of lining up all over the place in the slot, outside, H-back, all over the place. But you talked about how he's a blocker. So you're telling me blocking as a receiver, it actually matters, right?
Blocking as a receiver does, in fact, matter and can help you win football games.
Man, it's crazy. I didn't think blocking mattered in an NFL game anymore because apparently it's a pass-heavy offense. But when I looked at it, only 9 teams threw the ball 60% or more throughout the regular season this past year. So you're telling me, 23 other
40% of the game for a receiver, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy to me. I mean, 23 other teams have 40% blocking schemes intact for the receivers. I never would have guessed, but it's crazy. I guess we don't watch film and we don't pay attention to anything but just stats and numbers. But anyways, right. Moving forward to the guys that I liked a lot. I mean, this one might be a little bit not a shocker, but Vita Vea from Washington, I thought just absolutely crushed the combine. Now, I'll stop there for a moment and talk about 2 of my draft crushes absolutely breaking my heart. Maurice Hurst, defensive tackle out of Michigan. Unfortunate series of events for him because he got invited to the Senior Bowl. He elected to go and then backed out kind of last minute, which a lot of guys do, so you can't really hold that against him. But he then gets to, the invite to the combine, which you expected because he was a dominant player this past year. I've had him as a top 10 player on my board this entire time. And then he comes through the combine, goes through the medical checks, and they find out he's actually got a heart condition that's very similar to Nick Fairley when he came out of Auburn. Well, they didn't know it. I don't believe they knew it at the time with him when he came out of Auburn. It's just something that is now translated later in his career. But Nick Fairley was very good coming out of Auburn, still raw, but he was drafted by Detroit, ended up going to the Rams, playing with the Saints. And he's a guy that I think he might have retired now. I didn't look it up before the show with Nick Fairley, if he's still in the league now, or if he's just kind of like on a medical list amongst players in the NFL. But Maurice Hurst not being able to test, it definitely hurts his stock a little bit, in my personal opinion, simply because the medical check is there, so teams are going to be weary of that. But then you've also got Billy Price, who was another player I was a really big fan of, and he tore his pec on the very first day of everything. And so 2 of my draft crushes are just gone. But as far as Vita Vea, I think he did fantastic, measuring in at 6'4", 347 pounds. And I don't care who you are. Nobody was going to guess that this guy was going to run a 5.140. Nobody knew that. There's no way I was going to guess that. I would have said a sub 5.3, and I would have felt confident with that. I figured he would have hit, 30, 35 reps in the bench. He hit 40. It's like this guy.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous, man. Like, the guy is a beast. And like, I've had him as a top 20 prospect this entire time. I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest, if this guy goes in the top 10 of the draft. And I say it because a team that you actually cover for the daily mock draft that you do is the Oakland Raiders. I mean, that is a John Gruden pick all the way.
Right. So I've mocked Vita to the Raiders a few times. A lot of times it's Roquan Smith, Derwin James. Those are kind of the guys that I always those three, and then a mix in Edmonds. So those kind of four are probably the four that I mock to them the most.
Yeah. Well,
10. But yeah, Vita, he could definitely be an option for them. I wanted to touch on Hurst, like what you said is just heartbreaking with the heart condition.
mm-hmm.
But I believe Star Tulele had a similar. Who knows if it was a similar condition, but kind of a similar thing happened to him in the pre-draft process. And his stock luckily didn't take that much of a hit. He ended up being overall he was okay. I just hope that as a person that that Hurst is gonna have a similar fate that Tulele had.
Yeah, and I mean that's really all we can do is kind of hope at this point, but you just never really know. But moving forward from Vita Vea, for me, another guy was Lorenzo Carter. Obviously that guy just is a beast. I mean, I have a late day 2 or a late second round grade on him. I figured he would be available potentially into the early stages of round 3. Because of how many edge rushers there are in this class and things like that. But the way he tested at almost 6'5", 250 pounds, he came out, he ran a 4.540 official amongst his 2 runs. His first one was a 4.46, and he's got a 36-inch vertical. His broad jump was 10 feet 10 inches. I mean, it's unbelievable, the explosiveness that is behind Lorenzo Carter. And he was a player that I saw Jay Reed. If you follow him on Twitter, you know who I'm talking about, the guy that does all the Viking stuff. I think it's like Jay Reed Draft Scout or something.
Yeah.
And he puts out fantastic content all the time. He's been talking about Lorenzo Carter for weeks. And then, I listen to First Draft every now and again, talking with Mel Kiper and Todd McShay. And granted, sometimes those guys are off the rockers. We know that. But Lorenzo Carter was a guy that they consistently talked about as being an athletic freak, and he's going to test well at the combine. And even though Mel Kiper's wrong a lot of the time, this was something he hit the money on. And I think Lorenzo Carter, despite maybe being a little bit raw and playing out of position a lot for Georgia, he's going to be a guy that I think climbs into the first round off of just the combine. And you know how teams do it, because they look at 2 things, 2 very important things. Obviously, they look at, can a guy play football and all that, but they love and they covet 2 very important factors: athletic ability and versatility. And I think that's what Lorenzo Carter brings out of Georgia. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw his name somewhere between, pick 20 and even 25 at this point.
Yeah, I've mocked actually a few times in those Raiders mock drafts, traded up into the end of the second round to take Lorenzo Carter.
Mm-hmm.
And some people kind of question that, saying, like, is he really worth that? Where's the production? And I've said, man, you got to see this guy as an athlete before you see him as a player in one position, because he is a guy that he has athleticism that if a good coach gets their hands on, they could really mold into being really whatever you want him to be, because he is that level of an athlete. And I think that as far as if he was there in the second round, that would be a pick that I would make in a heartbeat. But like you said, he was so ridiculous that maybe he is taken at the end of the first round now, because a coach is going to see, hey, we can really take this guy and make him into anything we want, because he's such a star athlete.
Right. And I mean, you look at some of the new coaches that are around the NFL. I mean, you look at Mike Vrabel. He's going to Tennessee. They could desperately use a guy that they could either put in the ground as an edge rusher or standing up off the edge, however they would want to use it, because I don't know if they're going to be implementing a 3-4 or a 4-3 defense of base front. But Matt Patricia said at the scouting combine, the new Detroit Lions head coach, he said 90% of defensive teams, they don't use a base package anymore. It's a lot of sub packages, and they do a lot of different fronts throughout the game, whether it's a 3-man front, a 4-man front. hell, even a 5-man front. So there's a ton of different variances that you see now across defenses in the NFL. And so it'll be interesting to see where a guy like Mike Vrabel covets a player like Lorenzo Carter. And I think that would be a pretty ideal fit at this point because you've got a guy like Brian Arakpo who's getting up there and stuff. But what about Auden Tate? I need to ask you about him because we talked about him going into this, and I said he was going to test okay, and he did not. He did not look good. He looked sluggish. He measured in well at almost 6'5". He was 6'4" and 7/8 at 228 pounds. But he ran a 4.69 40 on his first run, a 4.74 on the second run. And I'm not going to overreact too much to just the simple 40 times because, I mean, look at Anquan Boldin. But I'm not going to sit here and say Auden Tate's Anquan Boldin. Not everybody that runs a 4.7 40 is Anquan Boldin. And to be honest, he only had a 31-inch vertical. So I'm really wondering, where is he athletically?
Yeah, so I've been a fan of Auden Tate. We've spoken about him. Like you said, he weighed in very well. He 6'4" and 7/8, so he's 6'5", 228, long arms, big wingspan, pretty good sized hands. But like you said, his 40, his vertical, and his broad jump all were very underwhelming. And that worries me. But I think the broad jump worries me more so than the 40 and the vertical because when you are 6'5", you have an advantage on a broad jump.
Mm-hmm.
In the form of it, you get an extra 4, 5, 6 inches just because you're taller, because you have longer legs. Like in a broad jump, you're leaning forward before you leave the ground, and that's going to get you an extra 2 or 3 inches, and then you can have longer legs to reach forward, and that's going to get you an extra 2 or 3 inches before you land.
Right.
That shows that he doesn't have great explosiveness. I think I wanted to compare him to Brandon Marshall. I think now he's definitely more of a Plaxico Burress comparison. Plaxico was a guy who was 6'6", 230, so similar size, and he wasn't a guy who was a burner. He was a 4.59 40. His vertical was only 33, and his broad jump wasn't very good either.
Yeah,
only 3 inches further than Auden Tate. So I think his ceiling's more so Plaxico Burress, just based on his athletic testing, more so than Brandon Marshall.
Right. I mean, it was odd to me, man. Like I truthfully thought it was going to be Auden Tate came out and did some things well, but there was times he was going through that gauntlet and it was just, he wasn't even like moving right. It was just like sluggish and not ready to go. And like you have the biggest job interview of your life and you're not testing where you need to be. And that worries me a little bit. And like off the tape, I'm still going to probably have him at wide receiver too. Like his tape isn't great, but I'm going to go off the upside. But like, if he would have tested well, I would have felt confident about the upside. And now I don't feel confident about the upside because I think that's part of the combine too. Like you see the athletic ability and you see these numbers from the broad jump and the verts and everything else, the shuttles and 3 cone drills and everything. You see that and you think, okay, I've got a guy that is athletic, he's versatile, he's got upside. Auden Tate didn't do any of that. And now I don't know where his upside is. Is it limited upside? Is this guy simply going to be a day 2 pick somewhere in the middle to late round 2, early day 3 or round 3, where it's going to be so hard to value him, and he's going to have to be a guy that I just go back and watch again because I'm either hitting or I'm missing the mark on it, or I'm hitting the nail on the head and I'll be right. I don't know, but. Is there any other receivers that kind of stood out from like Christian Kirk, maybe DJ Moore?
DJ Moore had a very good weigh in. Was measured at 6 feet, which surprised some people because he was only listed at 5'11". Mm-hmm. And usually if college lists someone at 5'11", especially a receiver, it means really that they're 5'10".
Yeah.
He was actually taller, which is surprising. He had good weight to him. I think it was 210, 215. But the guy and DJ Moore, I mean, I've had him at wide receiver 3. I don't think I'm going to end up changing that. But a guy that I want to talk about is Alan Lazard from Iowa State.
Okay.
6'5" or 6'4" and 5/8. Another guy, 227 pounds. And his 227, he holds it better than Dylan Cantrell or than Auden Tate. I mean, Lazard is rocked up.
Mm-hmm.
He's the guy. He was like the first guy I wrote down when it came to the weigh-in down in Mobile as like the guy who like is chiseled out of his mind.
Yeah.
So he was actually a guy that I've said, he might end up moving down to like tight end, kind of like that move tight end spot. And then he goes out and has like a great day. You know what I mean? He had a 4.55 40, which is slightly below average, but he weighs 227 pounds.
That's moving.
He had a vertical jump of 38 inches. was over the 80th percentile for receivers.
Mm-hmm.
He had a plus broad jump and a plus bench press, obviously, because he's huge.
Yeah.
So he's a guy who, like, maybe he is an outside the numbers, outside receiving threat, like a guy who can really win, because he's an above the rim type of guy. He can win in the intermediate. He showed that on film consistently. On top of him being a team captain, I think Lazard, I had him as a 4th-round grade, and I was always kind of like, no one was really that high on him. I think he's definitely a guy who I would take in the 4th round based on his tape, based on his intangibles, and based on what he just did at the combine, really like justifying his athleticism.
Yeah, no, he was solid. He was a guy that stood out in Mobile, like you said. I mean, he I walked in at the practices and I saw him, and I knew about him going into Mobile and everything because I wrote a little bit about him on Breaking Football and with my brief time there. And Lazard was a guy that stood out on film to me. And then I get to Mobile and I see him and I'm just like, man, this guy is huge. I mean, like, he's every bit of 6'4", every bit of 227. He's explosive. You see some of these things. And I think you're right. I think he could definitely play outside the numbers. I wouldn't be surprised if he made a move to tight end, played a little bit in the slot, kind of lining up all over the place. But, with the way the league is now, he's going to play all over. And I think he could be successful, especially in the red zone. And he definitely stood out as well. What about the quarterbacks? I mean, as we move forward through receivers, we move to quarterbacks, the guys that are throwing the football. I mean, let's start with Josh Allen. I thought the arm strength was obvious. I thought that was pretty obvious with him. I thought some of the footwork at times got sloppy, and it was really like, he gets 3 or 4 throws to throw during each drill, and there was times that first throw was awful. It was either behind the receiver or too far out in front of the receiver, and then that second throw, pretty good, and that third throw was either good or it was missing. And like, he was throwing the ball from the 10-yard line literally to the 25-yard line, the opposite 25-yard line, and it was like with ease. And I mean, clearly the arm strength is there. I don't think I'm going to adjust anything as far as my quarterbacks rankings go. I think they're going to be set to where they are. But I mean, apparently he's been turning a lot of heads down there. Is there a chance you think that he goes much higher than we're thinking? Do you think he goes 1?
I think there's a chance he goes number 1, just based on the way that, I mean, no one's going to be surprised if the Browns mess up, right? I mean,
right.
But, that's kind of a given. But I still don't think I'm never going to have Allen as a 1st-round grade. But he had a good combine, even in the sense that he's showing off his arm strength, and then his measurables were awesome. His workout was awesome. You know what I mean? You look and he's above, like, he was over 70% on all percentile on all of the workouts except for the shuttle. You know what I mean? But height, weight, 40 vertical, broad jump, 3-cone, hand size, arm length. There's all over 70%. So like, he is a good athlete in comparison to other quarterbacks, kind of a lot like Andrew Luck, what Andrew Luck was.
Right.
But I think that in the throwing drills, and I'm not going to put too much stock into the throwing drills, but I think that his ball placement and his accuracy was not
right
what it was for the other guys, and that's what playing quarterback really comes down to.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what's been holding him back the entire time. That's why I have a hard time moving him up anywhere into the top 3 discussion of my quarterbacks. I can't do it because the ball placement is so erratic. I mean, there's times that he's throwing the ball 60, 70 miles an hour, and which is great. And you can launch it, like a missile. I don't care about that. I care about where you're placing this thing. And there's times, like his first throw on the deep pass, and it was like they were like, okay, they're going to be running verticals, and you knew what was going to happen. Like, I knew going into it, I'm like, I know what he's doing. He's going to throw this ball almost to the end zone, and he could definitely launch it to the end zone. And there's so much air underneath it, but that's like the problem. There's so much air underneath this ball. Like, if he was throwing in Dallas' stadium, it would have hit the Jumbotron for sure. And like the ball is underthrown on the first one. And it was like, that was a great throw as far as like arm strength. But again, placement's off. And I can't do it as far as putting him up. But I would not be surprised if the Browns took him at 1. Is there another quarterback that stood out? I mean, a lot of these guys were throwing passes to the receivers that you're paying attention to. Was there anybody else? I mean, we didn't see Sam Darnold throw, but we did see, Austin Allen. We did see Luke Falk again. Lamar Jackson did some throwing. And then obviously Baker Mayfield and Josh Rosen. Where are we at on all these guys?
Yeah, so I was kind of disappointed that Darnold didn't throw it, and I think we touched on it. It's not that big a deal. I mean, who cares, But I still think he goes number one. I think he's a favorite to go number one. I think Allen has a chance. Rosen, they all have a chance too. I would say Allen is the second best chance. But overall, I was disappointed that Jackson didn't run, which was also disappointing. But I mean, I don't really think we learned anything about the quarterback class. I think not only does the film tell all. I mean, we knew most of their measurables. Pretty much everyone except Darnold and Rosen. Because of the Senior Bowl, because of what we saw in Mobile. So it's kind of like, I'm not going to put a lot of stock into those throwing drills. I'm really not. And like, even the workouts, we didn't get to see what we want to see with like Jackson throwing. We saw that some of the guys are pretty decent athletes, and Mayfield, he can move a little bit, but I don't know. I would never take a combine. When it comes to the combine, if you're going to adjust your receiver rankings because the combine shows you that a receiver can't win at the next level, and you adjust your receiver rankings, that makes sense. But
right.
If you're adjusting your quarterback rankings off the combine, too much. You're giving it too much thought. You need to taper it back a little bit.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And that's the thing. Like I've been noticing so much stuff on the timelines of people saying, "Oh, well, this guy did this in the 40, and this guy did this in the 3 cone." Like, who was it? I think it was Chad Forbes who wrote something about Sam Darnold's 3 cone drill and stuff like that. And yeah, right. He was like, oh, his broad jump was only, where is it? It was only like 8-9, and he only did this in the shuttle, and he's not, matching what other guys are doing. And Todd McShay straight up was like, don't be this guy, So I'm with you. And I didn't see much with the quarterbacks that I didn't see in Mobile. Like, I saw Josh Allen's big arm. It was great to see him get a bunch of air under the ball. I saw the same things with, Baker Mayfield that I saw in Mobile. And I thought he looked better in pads than he did in shorts and a T-shirt. Josh Rosen, he looked pretty good, I thought, for the most part. There was times, he might have missed a pass here or there with like an underthrow or a little too far out in front. But, I mean, that shows on tape too. So everything that like we saw with the quarterbacks, I've seen on tape. And my quarterback rankings, again, they're not going to change. Like Josh Rosen's going to be quarterback number 1. Baker Mayfield's going to be quarterback number 2. Sam Darnold's going to be 3. Lamar Jackson's 4. And Josh Allen's 5. It's just going to be that way, and it's probably going to stay that way unless something crazy happens off the field with one of these guys. But let's move to the running backs. I know people are probably waiting on where we have some of these guys. Saquon Barkley, I mean, obviously we can start with him. 6 foot, 233. 9.5-inch hands, ran a 4.4 flat 40, which is just ridiculous for a player his size. 29 reps in the bench and a 41-inch vertical. I mean, this guy's got to be a top 3 player on the draft board, right? I mean, that's where I've got him. He's number 1 on my board.
Yeah, he's my number 2 player behind Quentin Nelson. I mean, we knew this about Barkley. What I mean? I knew it. The film showed it. The film showed it when he was a freshman. You know what I mean? Like, it was there. You could see it. I'm happy he weighed in over 230. He's a freak of nature. I think he needs to kind of take what the defense gives him sometimes on film. I think that is a weakness of his. He's not a perfect prospect, and that's okay. Like I said, I still have him as my number 2 player. I still really, really love him. I said he was the best running back in the country when he was a freshman. Just throwing it out there. I really like him. So but he's not a perfect prospect. I think that's okay to accept the fact that sometimes he tries to hit the home run when really he needs to put his head down and get 5, get 4.
Yep. Oh yeah. That's the thing. He does a lot of dancing. He does try to do too much laterally. And I think that's where like people say, oh, he's Barry Sanders, this and that. Well, I can understand what you're saying, but he's not Barry Sanders. It's not even close.
Yeah, he's not as elusive as Barry Sanders.
No.
But as far as the running backs go, I mean, Darius Geis didn't have a huge day, but he had a good 40. He was in the 4.4s. He snuck into the 4.4s, which is good for him. And, like you said, he's more of a truck stick guy than anything else. I'll reiterate, no one cares about the arm length. But I think the big winner, I guess, of the class would be Nick Chubb.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean,
he essentially had a Saquon Barkley workout while being 6 pounds lighter.
Right. And yeah, I mean, absolutely. And we talked about this in the pre-show. I was like, does this change at all with Sonny Michel and Nick Chubb? Like, I'm still going to have Michel as my running back 3, and I know you've got Ronald Jones as RB3. But I mean, Nick Chubb, I think, has solidified himself as a top 5 back in this class without question.
Definitely.
If not a top 4 back, and even some would probably say he's a top 3 back. But I mean, a 4.5. 240 officially, 29 reps in the bench, 38.5-inch vertical, and a 10 feet 8 inches in the broad jump is fantastic for him. We know what he is. He's thick, thick legs, thick season, boys, and he's got thick legs. He's big up top. He's going to truck you every chance he gets. His legs do not stop moving. He's got good vision. He's got a decent burst behind him. I like him a lot, and he had a good workout. But I mean, does this change anything as far as like, how did you have Michel and Chubb? Are they like 4 and 5, or where are they at?
I had them at 4 and 5, Michel, and then Chubb.
So does this change at all? Does this mean Chubb's 4 and Michel's 5, or you keeping what you got?
I'll have to go back and watch. I've honestly basing all that off of what I saw live.
Right.
I haven't scouted the running backs yet. But I've been a fan of Nick Chubb since he was a freshman, like kind of the same as Barkley.
Yeah.
For Gurley, and had like 8-game stretch where he like went off.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Who is this kid? And he was huge then. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he's definitely a guy who I've liked. That injury was so unfortunate, but he's definitely back. I mean, athletically, he's definitely back. They said in the weight room he hit all the numbers he hit pre-injury. He has hit all the numbers he hit pre-injury.
Yep.
Obviously, he had a great combine. So I mean, his athleticism is there. So I'll definitely go back and look. I don't know. He might jump up over Sonny Michel, and that I think that'd be fine. I mean, I like him. I like all 5 of those guys. They mentioned even some later guys. So it's not like I'm going to dislike Sonny Michel just because I bump Chubb over him if I do. But yeah, I could see that happening.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've watched a lot of the stuff as far as like early in the season, the first couple of games, like the Notre Dame game. And then I watched the bowl games and like the stretch of where Sonny Michel just absolutely has gone off. And he's gone off pretty much consistently all year. And I'm probably going to roll with what I have as far as Barkley, Geist, Michel, and Chubb. And it'll probably get confusing after that between like Ronald Jones, John Kelly, Kerryon Johnson, Rashard Penny, and all those guys. But somebody that really stuck out to me at the running back group was Kalen Ballage. And it was a guy that, at 6'1", 228, and I was on Deuce Wyndham's podcast on Friday, I believe, Thursday or Friday, and we talked about the running backs and stuff like that. And I talked about Ballage and how talented he is as far as an athlete goes. I mean, he ran a 4.46 40. He did only have 15 reps in the bench, but a 6.9 1-3 cone drill is pretty good. And then he had a broad jump at 10 feet too, with 33.5 in the vertical. So Ballage was a guy that really stands out from the numbers, and the athletic ability is there because on film this past year, he didn't look like the same guy he was in 2016. 2017 was much different for him. And obviously Arizona State didn't know how to utilize him playing in that wildcat. And we saw what he could do as a receiver down in Mobile. But I mean, this athletic ability kind of confirms that, hey, he can play running back. You just got to utilize him the right way. And Arizona State didn't do that, but he's definitely stood out to me.
Right. So I actually went back and watched Kalen Ballage last night.
Nice.
Well, I was watching Texas Tech when there was their game against Arizona State, so I kind of did it by accident. But he looked not very good at running back in that Texas game. So apparently the year before he had 7 touchdowns.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But the game they played against them this year, their defense really, really shut him down. I mean, he had like 16 carries, like 50 yards. He looked – and I watched Texas Tech against Oklahoma State right before it, and Mason Rudolph had those numbers. Like, it was bad. Like, their run defense was not good. So like my interpretation was like Ballage, and like you said, he looked like a very good receiver in Mobile, and he has the athleticism. And it's like all around athleticism. He's a big guy. He can really move laterally. That he's kind of more of a offensive weapon than he is a pure running back.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's had times this past year where he really did get shut down. You know what I mean? Like, I'm talking like less than like 20, 30 yards. So he is a guy who, if you take him in the middle rounds, you have to have a plan for him more so than just more so than just putting him into your system and
Right.
having him as your number one back.
Yeah, no, and I'm not saying, hey, draft Balaj, that's your feature back. No, but I think he's a nice little, I mean, not a sleeper because people know how talented he is, but they see the flaws with him. But I think he's a guy that will go, probably day 3 somewhere. And I mean, he could be a nice fit down the line for some teams. So it'll be interesting. But let's move to the tight ends. And I mean, this is the Mike Gesicki show from Penn State. I mean, he is a combine warrior at 6'4", 247. Over 10 inches with his hand size and a 40-yard time of 4.54 with a bench of 22 reps, and just a 41.5-inch vertical is insane. But he also had a 60-yard shuttle of 11.33. His short shuttle was 4.1, and his 3-cone was 6.76, which is just ridiculous numbers for him. And for really anybody that size, like I said, 6'4", 247. Not a lot of guys at 247 and 6'4" who on film run like a dad are moving like that at the combine. But he's moving at the combine. I mean, I know he's a former basketball player. He's a vertical guy, not much of an inline blocker, but I mean, he is a freak of nature.
Yes, yeah. There's literally not much anyone could say about it. So he has a basketball background, his volleyball background, and you can see it because he jumps out of the gym.
Yeah, dude. I mean, like, where, like,
1.5-inch vertical. What?
Right. I mean, like, is he now like the top tight end? Like, because I know, with tight ends, a lot of the stuff off of them is you want to look at what they do as a blocker, but specifically stuff like this is what makes people drool on tight ends. And I mean, is he now the top guy, or is it still Dallas Goedert?
Honestly, I'm going to have to go back and watch and the thing is, like, after Mobile, Goddard only ran 2 routes and he got hurt.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like the Mike Gesicki show down there, and he looked good. I think he can like really drop his hips, kind of similar to a wide receiver, and you can see it because his 3-cone drill is 6.7 at 247 pounds.
Right.
And his shuttle is 4.1 at 247 pounds. And his vertical and his broad, everything, his vertical jump, his 40-yard dash, his vertical, his broad jump, his 3-cone, his 20-yard shuttle, 60-yard shuttle, all of those are over 92nd percentile for tight ends.
It's ridiculous.
All of those are over the 92nd percentile. And then on top of the fact that he's 6'5.5", on top of the fact that he has a 90th percentile wingspan for tight ends, long arms, big hands, and he put up 22 on the bench. There is nothing not to like about him.
Yeah.
Athletically. I mean, he's like, so at MathBomb, Kent Lee Platt on Twitter, he does this thing called the RAS score, RAS. It's a relative athletic score. He basically takes height, weight, 40, 20-yard split, 10-yard split, bench press, vertical, broad jump, shuttle, and a 3-cone drill, and he puts it against the positions like historically.
Yeah.
Like I said, he was the number 3 tight end
ever.
1987 since the combine started. Out of 678 tight ends, he's a 3rd best athlete.
And we're talking like with O.J. Howard, Evan Ingram just from last year. I mean, that tight end class last year was ridiculous.
Yeah. So it's literally like Vernon Davis, Mike Gesicki on the tight end.
Yeah.
The last 30 years.
Yeah, and
incredible.
I've heard Trevor Sikkema compare him to Jimmy Graham, and I'm like, dude, that's like a spot on comp. Like, that is amazing. That's pretty spot on, I think, and I think that's what he could be and utilize as in the NFL. As far as my tight end number 1, Ian Thomas,
he had a good day.
He had a good day. I mean, he really did. He measured in at 6'3", 5'8", 259 pounds. He had an 80-inch wingspan, which is ridiculous. Hand size over 10 inches.
Real quick, 6'3", 260 is a thick man.
He's
got the Mike Mayock patented bubble butt too. He's a bowling ball.
Dude, it's thick season, boys. He is thick. And he ran a 4.7, 4.40, which is not, it's not going to make you drool. It's good for a tight end, and it's good because he's an inline blocker. So, I think he needs to get, more sudden in his routes. His hands got to become more consistent. But in the red zone and in short yardage situations, this guy's going to see the field. And, I mean, I still like him as my top guy.
He had an excellent broad jump. He had a 10'3" broad jump, which is in the 91st percentile for the tight ends. I mean, good, decent 3-cone, but a really good shuttle. He's a good lateral. He can move laterally very well.
Yeah.
Showed that on film. He's not like this tight this tight guy. I think there were some concerns about his play speed, but he's better than 60 percentile to the 40-yard dash. He could be a field stretcher at the next level from the slot. Like you said, now he's an inline blocker, but he lined up at the H-back a lot. So he was coming on split zone. A lot of plays for Indiana, and he could block that kick. He could do that kickout block very well.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I think that he's a guy who he kind of has all the tools. Little raw, we've kind of touched on that. I think he only has 29 career catches.
Yeah, well, I think he's only played really a season and a half.
Right, yeah. And he had one catch his junior year coming out of the JUCO, and then this past year had like 99% of his career production.
Yeah.
He was a little raw, but I think down the line, I mean, does he have Gesicki's ceiling? No, but does he have a high ceiling? Definitely, he definitely does. I really like Ian Thomas.
Yeah, I'm with it. I'm with the Hive for sure. But moving to the offensive line, we got to start with Orlando Brown. I mean, It was historically one of the worst combines, if not the worst combine ever. Orlando Brown, offensive tackle out of Oklahoma. He's been coveted as potentially the top offensive tackle. I never saw that, but I figured he was in the range of, second or third best tackle in this class. And at 6'7", almost 6'8", he was 6'7" and 7/8", 345 pounds, an arm length of 35. And I get that. Okay, long arms doesn't always translate to very good reps in the bench. But he only had 14. 14. Like if he would have had 20, 19, that's respectable. I can respect that with 35-inch arms. 14 is like defensive back numbers. That is bad. That is so.
I have beaten that number.
I have not, but I give you credit. And he had a 40-yard dash of 5.85. I have beaten that number many times, and I could still beat that number. I could beat that number with my hands tied behind my back right now after drinking 14 beers at Vita's. I mean, that is so bad. And then, the vertical, who cares? 19 and a half inches, though. No explosiveness.
Awful.
Broad jump, 6 feet, 10 inches. So bad. I mean, that's literally like throwing a bowling ball out there. And then you could probably throw a bowling ball farther than that. But the 3-cone drill was 7.87, which isn't terrible compared to some other guys. It
was his best event. The only one that wasn't terrible.
Right. And like that shows some promise. But I mean, there's no way this guy, even though he's never played right tackle and he's only played left tackle for Oklahoma, there's no way this guy's playing left tackle at the next level. There's no way. No freaking way.
So where I'm getting these percentile numbers from is mockdraftable.com. If you haven't looked on that, it's just a database of numbers for the NFL Combine. It's phenomenal. So as far as the percentiles go, for the 40-yard dash,
he's so bad.
Compared to two offensive linemen. Compared to offensive linemen since 1999, 0 percentile the 40-yard dash.
Woof.
0 percentile for the vertical, 0 percentile for the broad jump, 1 percentile for the shuttle.
Woof.
1 percentile for the bench press.
That is so bad.
He legitimately might be the worst athlete as far as those numbers go of an offensive lineman ever at the NFL Combine.
I'm pretty sure Rich Eisen ran faster than him.
Rich Eisen did not run faster than him, but they did the simulcast, and it was close.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the problem because he was running in a suit and tie.
Roger Goodell ran a 40-yard dash down a hallway in a suit, tie, and dress shoes, and they timed him with a faster time than Orlando Brown's 40.
It's so bad. But what wasn't bad was a guy that we talked about going into the Combine. We talked about him last week because you watched him with NC State. I've got a scouting report, which you can check out at cover1.net, and that's Mike McGlinchey, offensive tackle out of Notre Dame. And he checked out pretty well, and we know he's athletic because, well, he's got some basketball background to him and stuff like that, but he's 6'7", 7/8", 309 pounds, wingspan 81, incredible, arm length at 34. So I don't really want to hear about, oh, he had 35-inch arms. Well, McGlinchey had 34 arm length, 34-inch arms, and he benched 24 reps in the bench. He didn't do the 40-yard dash, at least according to Mock Draftable here. And still, he had a good day. Everything measured out well for him. And, I mean, I was impressed with him.
Definitely. He had a good day. Like you said, he's 6'8", 6'8", 310 for all intents and purposes. Pretty good explosiveness, plus in the vertical, plus in the broad jump. Good bench press. He's all around. He's got good big hands, pretty long arms. He's an all around athlete. I think that he, we talked about him a lot. I think he could be a good left tackle for you. And if you do move him to right tackle because he has experience over there, I think he's going to be a very good right tackle.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if a team's going to project Connor Williams at guard, which could happen if the team that drafts him at guard, we can look back and have Mike McGlinchey probably as OT1 from the class.
Yeah.
But as far as one of the better athletes of the lineman goes, Colton Miller at UCLA.
Oh, yeah.
He crushed it. Or compared to the lineman, 91st percentile in the shuttle, 93rd percentile in the 3-cone drill, 99th percentile in the broad jump with a 10-foot 1 broad jump.
Ridiculous.
Which is better than what I've ever done. I had a 10-foot broad jump at like 218 pounds. He is a 10-foot 1 broad jump at 310. So that is pretty nuts. Fast in the 40 for a lineman, big hands, good arm span, long arms, tall. I mean, there's not much to dislike about him as an athlete.
4.49 in the short shuttle. Unreal.
That's fast. Yeah, that's pretty good. So
yeah.
he like we mentioned him too. He has work to do in his technique, in his kick steps. But as far as an athlete goes, if you get him to a good offensive line coach, if you get him to Dante Scarnecchia,
this is just a Patriots pick. Oh God.
If you get him to Dante Scarnecchia or another line coach of that quality, I don't think there are any. But
oh my God,
that quality. Say the Bears offensive line coach who's coming from Notre Dame, who's coached up these guys for years, who are just pumped out NFL prospects. You get a guy like him, his hands on Colton Miller with that type of athleticism. You have a guy who projects, at least his potential-wise, as a premier left tackle in the league. Not necessarily saying he's going to get there, but that is his ceiling with that type of athleticism that he showed at the combine.
Yeah, no, the athletic ability is there. And like you said, I think, technique-wise, he's got to fix some things. I think it's going to be hard for him to play lower because he's almost 6'9", but the athletic ability is there. The kick steps, he's got to get better. I think he struggles a little bit with stuff, switching with defensive ends that have a good combination of speed to power and switching stuff inside. I think he's going to struggle a little bit with that. But, I mean, you can always get stronger, and I don't think he needs to get any faster. But he's definitely a guy that he won the day for offensive tackles, in my opinion, because of just that athletic ability. But a guy that we have to talk about because people say guards don't matter. Quentin Nelson is an elite freaking prospect. He's a premier guy in this class, potentially the best player in the class. You've got him number 1. I've got him number 2 on my board. He's 6'5", 325. He's big enough to play left freaking tackle. And, I mean, he's got hands 10 3/8, unreal. And then 35 reps in the bench, 26.5-inch vertical, which is pretty good. And, I mean, he tested well and everything else. He didn't do the 40 or anything like that. But this is a guy that, I mean, he is so he's a technician and everything about him. He's powerful. He's quick. There's no way that this guy doesn't go top 5.
Yeah, I think him getting 35 reps in the bench press was probably the least surprising thing I've seen throughout the combine. Like, you saw that when you watched him on film, you saw that power. You saw him you saw him throwing dudes around with his upper body strength. And despite him having longer arms, the 35 reps on bench was like, yep, he did it. I was like, yeah, that sounds about right. Like, you probably could have done, you could have told me he did 40, I wouldn't have been surprised because he is that powerful in the upper body. And he's that powerful in the lower body too. I'm not trying to discredit that, but that was just, you could see it on film. He finishes guys left and right, and he teabags him when he does it.
It's awesome.
Kind of love, yeah. I would hate if I was the guy going against him. I never would be though. But I mean, Quentin Nelson, player 1, put him on the board. You get Zach Martin 2.0 in my opinion. Player
1. What are we playing? Mario Kart? Come on. No, I mean, you're right. I mean, he's one of the top players in the class. He's fantastic. But let's move forward. Defensive ends. We talked a little bit about defensive tackles, but I want to talk about defensive ends, and I want to talk Josh Sweat out of Florida State. And this is a guy that, I mean, he tested much better than I was thinking he was going to do. And this is a guy that's come off basically new legs. I mean, he's like Forrest Gump. He's got new legs. And 6'4", 251, almost 35-inch arms. He ran a 4.53 40, which is just ridiculous, with the 39.5-inch vertical. Like, we knew he was a very, very talented player, and I'm not even getting into his 3-cone drill, which is ridiculous at 4.28. 4.2 frickin' 8. I mean, those hips are flipping Or no, I'm sorry, that's the short shuttle. I'm sorry. But I misspoke on that. But either way, 4.28 is ridiculous in the short shuttle. This guy is, he tested much better. I think he's probably going to be a round 2 pick at this point.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I mean, that's another guy similar to Lorenzo Carter. It's actually funny if you look at their mock draftable page, they're the number one similarities for each other.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, because they are that level of freak athlete. I think that, Josh Sweat I think his film left a lot to be desired. I think that his production could have been a lot higher, and part of that, I think was kind of just playing for Florida State, and their whole team was kind of down this year. I think they all didn't quite reach the expectations that everyone had for him. But he's a guy that, despite leaving a little bit to be desired on film, a lot like Lorenzo Carter, a coach is going to fall in love with athleticism, think that he can turn him into whatever he wants him to be, because he's a guy who's 6'4", 250, could probably be a piece that just moves around, the whole front seven for the quarterback. So I think he's in the conversation definitely in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah, no, he boosted his stock definitely off just the athletic ability, because we talked about it. Coaches love athletic ability, versatility. He brings those things to the table, absolutely. And he wasn't a former number 1 prospect coming out of high school. Unfortunately, he had a dislocation in his knee, tore his ACL. Every ligament, it seems like, in his body was torn. But he's a guy that's recovered well. It shows athletically. And this is a guy that's got a good blend of speed to power. I like that. He's a big contributor in stopping the run. So that's key too when you get to the next level, because like we talked about, only 60% or 9 teams throw 60% of the time. So you still got to stop the run. He does that, and I like that he's not just an edge rusher. He's an all-around good player. I thought he was a 3rd-round pick going into the draft simply because of the medicals and things like that. And I didn't think he was going to test like this. And then he comes out and he blows the doors off. So it's ridiculous. Is there any other defensive ends you wanted to talk about, or defensive tackles?
Absolutely. My guy, Harold Landry.
Yes.
Killing the 3-cone drill, and out here killing the 20-yard shuttle, and out here killing his 10-yard split. His combine was awesome. So he's only 6'2", 252, but he is, he's a typical speed edge rusher. So his 10-yard split, official 1.59, same as Vic Beasley. Better than Bud Dupree's, better than Robert Quinn. His 3-cone drill, 6.88, puts him in the 95th percentile for edges. The same 3-cone as J.J. Watt. Better 3-cone than Joey Bosa. Better 3-cone than Vic Beasley. He's a guy who's going to get home with that bend, and we said before the combine, I said before the combine that his 3-cone drill was probably what I was looking forward to the most, and he had a 95th percentile 3-cone drill for defensive ends. He lived up to exactly what I thought he was going to do. He's a guy who is absolutely a top 15 pick. If he somehow falls to 19, I want the Cowboys to scoop him up. I want them to sprint to the podium and do it. And I know that you want the Lions to take him at 20 if he's there.
Yes.
But I think he goes in the top 15. But I think he's going to produce year 1, pretty well. But I think that year 2 jump that we've seen out of guys like Vic Beasley, we've seen out of guys like Robert Quinn in the past. That's a guy who's going to get double-digit sacks in year 2, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, for sure. Going into this thing, you wanted to see the 3-cone drill and all that, and I agree with you. But going into this, I knew he was a top 15 player on the board. He's number 8 on my board, and he's staying at 8. And this solidified it. And I actually got one right, boys. Okay, I got one right finally. And this is a guy that I'm feeling confident about. He was the first player I watched for the 2017 season. During the preseason and everything, like throughout the summer, he was the first guy I watched, and I was impressed, and I'm still impressed off of what 2016 was. 2017 was a down year. We know that, but this guy is a top 15 pick, and I don't see how a team like potentially even Oakland, who's looking to get an edge rusher opposite of Khalil Mack, how they could pass on him. I like Vita Vea, but you then get to Green Bay at 14. I don't know how they pass on him with how much talent he has and he brings to the table when you got a Clay Matthews who's sitting at 32, 33 years of age. So Harold Landry absolutely crushed it. I want to talk.
So real quick, you told me that I can't keep dropping hot takes in the podcast.
Drop them. I never said that.
You said that.
I wanted a heads up, but that's fine.
Harold Landry, edge 1.
Get out of here.
Yes. I will die on that hill. I think it's at the point where I'm convinced he's a slightly better athlete than Bradley Chubb, and he has a trump card where I'm not positive that Chubb does. And I think Landry is a guy who could get 12 to 14 sacks, and Chubb is more of a guy who's going to cap at 10. Harold Landry, edge one. I'm throwing it out there. Hot takes on the Cover One podcast from your boy Brad Kelly. Bradley Chubb's down to edge two.
It's Cover One, the podcast. You said the Cover One podcast. That's wrong. Eric's going to kill you. No, I can't get on that. I'm sorry, dude. I can't. Bradley Chubb, with the power that he brings, there's no way, dude. I can't do it. I can't get on that hill with you, man.
I'll convince you of that before the draft. Don't worry.
No, you won't. You won't even. You can't even convince me to have a cheeseburger from 7-Eleven. There's no.
I wouldn't suggest that to anybody.
Well, speaking of edges, I mean, let's talk about Marcus Davenport and Arden Key. These are two guys that have been all over the board. I've seen Arden Key as edge number one. I've seen. I know, well, awful. I'm about to gag just thinking about it. But then you've got Marcus Davenport out of UTSA, 6'5.5", 264. He tested pretty well. I mean, 4.58 40 is pretty good for him. Only 22 reps in the bench. That's fine. But he had a broad jump of 10.4, 7.20 in the 3-cone, and 4.41 in the shuttle. So I thought he did okay. He looked a lot better at the combine than he did in pads at Mobile, because in Mobile, he was playing high. He wasn't using his hands. He was getting stood up. Where are we on him? I mean, this is a guy we saw live, and you see him at the combine, and he does well. I mean, where is he? I've seen that he's like a top 10 pick, according to the experts.
I don't mind Marcus Davenport. I still think that he's more of a late first, early second round guy, and you take him because he has good traits. He doesn't have great traits. He has good traits, and that's okay at the end of the first round. I think that he doesn't have the elite athleticism that would justify taking him in the top 10 or the top 15. He has good athleticism, but it's just not that elite number. He doesn't have that bend or that explosiveness that Harold Landry has, and he doesn't have the power that Bradley Chubb has. Like, those are guys I would take in the top 10 as far as edges go. You know what I mean? He's kind of like a mixture of both, but he's not good at any one thing. So, like, that's not a guy who I take in the top 10. Who's the other one you mentioned? Oh, Arden Key. So as far as Arden Key goes, I know I just kind of like made fun of him, but he did have a pretty decent workout. I think he's a good athlete. I mean, I think everyone could see that on the film. The only problem is he was very light. You know, he's more of a 3-4 outside linebacker who, like, you know, I think you're going to have to teach him how to pass drop and how to play in space, because he weighs less than 240 pounds. He's kind of like Marquarius Mingo in that sense.
Dude, oh my God, you're in my head. I'm like, I'm not trying to compare LSU players, but geez, oh Pete, is.
Mingo was only like 230 and change, I think, coming out. Combine. Good athlete, but is he a premier pass rusher in the NFL? No, he's a good complementary piece. You know, I don't mind taking that maybe in the third round. I would love to get Arden Key in the third round, but I don't think he has the traits to be considered edge one.
No, there's no way. I don't even think you can put him in I don't think you can put him in the top 3 discussion. I mean, for me, it's, you know, Chubb, Landry, and then Davenport is how I would shape it up to be for now. But I don't have a first round grade on Key. I don't see it. I see a guy that lacks effort. I see a guy that doesn't contribute at all in the run game unless that play is coming to him. He's guessing, so the mental processing, in my opinion, isn't there. And I mean, like, I'm not too worried like that he didn't do the 40 or anything like that, but like the vertical jump was only like 31. That was 25, the 25th percentile, you know, like it's not like saying, oh, that's the difference maker, but he just, I can't see it with him. I just can't. Like when I get those hunches with players, I had the hunch with Malik McDowell last year. And I'm not saying like it's done with Malik McDowell, but it's not looking good. And I have this hunch with Arden Key. I'm not always right. I had the hunch with Dalvin Cook. I'm dead wrong. So who knows, you know? But let's move forward to the linebackers. We haven't touched on them, and then we'll close it out with defensive backs. But linebackers, I mean, Roquan Smith, Tremaine Edmonds, who's linebacker one? I've got Roquan.
Let's get back to that. Let's talk about Shaquem Griffin.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
4.38.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? That is, at 227 pounds, that is literally, he's 5 pounds less than Saquon Barkley and faster than Saquon Barkley. What? I didn't see that on the film. I saw he was fast, but if you take his 40-yard dash and you compare it to just athletes, so literally any athlete on the field, not like this counts wide receivers, corners, running backs, safeties, he's still in the 96th percentile for the 40-yard dash.
It's ridiculous.
That is absurd. Now, are we worried about his weight? Maybe a little bit. I still think that I don't really know how to word this, but I still think he's like missing, I don't know, 5 to 7 pounds just, because of the missing hand.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that his frame is still like a 233-pound frame, maybe. He has like a similar frame to Saquon Barkley, but he's missing a hand.
Right.
So like, and then,
no, I mean, he's definitely got a spot.
Short, obviously. So it's like, are there going to be limitations? Yes, he's 6 foot. He's only 227. His one-hand size is small. So, like, there's going to be limitations. But that speed is something you could use day one. Like, you can put him on the kickoff team. You can put him on the punt rush team. You can put him on all the special teams you want. Plus, you can, like, rush him around the edge. You can play him a little bit of space. So, like, that is just – I was not expecting that.
No.
At all. And I love that he did it.
Yeah, no, for sure. And, I mean, like, it was – you saw it and it was like, what? No way. Because at 227, like, he's not like jacked at 227 or anything like that. Like, he's just a football player, and that's what he is. And he's going to be a guy that, like you said, he's going to play special teams. He's going to be an edge rusher on certain situations, like standing up, rushing off the edge. And then, you're going to see him in these sub packages where he's playing in the slot a little bit. And with that burst and quickness that he's got, he's going to get to flats. He's going to cover those areas, those short areas and things like that. He might be a little bit limited in certain spots in coverage. I don't think he's going to line up as a safety and go play cover 2 or anything like that. But, I mean, you play him up in the box. You got him going to flats. You got him blitzing off the edge. That's perfectly fine. He's going to stop some things in the run. He's going to do just fine on the, like I said, on the third down and special teams. That's worth of being a draft pick. Where he goes, I mean, where does he go? He's not going round 1. We know that. Is he going round 2 or round 3, or is this like strictly day 3?
I think you end up going day 3, but I'm fine. If you take him in the 4th round, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a good spot for him. As far as like not being a guy who has to be relied on to come in day 1 and be a big producer, like a guy like a 1st or 2nd round pick.
Mm-hmm.
But a guy that can come in and produce right away in his role, find his niche and produce in it, and then continue to grow as a player, down the line as like a 3rd or 4th rounder.
Yeah.
But as far as the Roquan Smith, Tremaine Edmonds,
yeah. Before you rudely interrupted me,
I think Roquan, I think he only ran the 40, and he ran well. I don't think what any of those two did change anything I had for them. Edmonds, his measurements were just crazy. He's like 6'4.5", 250. When his arms go to the ground.
Oh yeah, I know.
I get it. And he's fast. He ran a very good 40. Him and Roquan ran very similar 40s. I think 4.51 and 4.54. So essentially the same. And you can see that, especially with Roquan and his sideline ability. So what they going to look for more numbers out of Roquan at the pro day, which is going to be an insane pro day, by the way.
Yeah.
But nothing that they did really moved the needle one way or the other for those two as far as they go. But I think the linebacker who had the biggest rise is Leighton Vander Esch at Boise State.
I mean, I had him going in 1st round, so it's not much of a rise for me. But no doubt about it. I mean, 6'4", 256, almost 34-inch arms. And he ran, a 4.65, which is just insane for a guy his size. And
right.
Then 39.5-inch vertical, 10'4" broad jump. And then how about this? 6'8" in the 3-cone and the short shuttle of 4.15. I mean, that's ridiculous. The numbers are ridiculous. He's an athletic freak.
Right. So when he weighed in at 256, I was like, oh, he's in trouble. You know what I mean? Because I thought that he was going to be too heavy. But he moved like Roquan Smith moves at, whatever he is, like 230. So, like, that's kind of scary as far as his athleticism. Like, that's like a Urlacher type of an athlete, a Luke Kuechly type of an athlete, while weighing 256. I'm going to have to go back and see if I can see that athleticism on the film.
Right.
That's pretty crazy. But one guy that I do want to touch on as far as the linebackers go, he's kind of almost become like the forgotten man of the linebacker group is Malik Jefferson. So like throughout the year, he was a first round pick throughout the year as far as the mock drafts go. And like now in the pre-draft process, Edmonds Edmonds entering the draft, and then Rashaan Evans having a good workout, and Lane Vander Esch are going to work out. Malik Jefferson is kind of like falling off to like LB5, where at a lot of points he was kind of like LB2. But he had a good day. He had a 4.52 40, basically the same as Roquan Smith. Weighs 236. He's that prototypical 2018 sideline to sideline guy, more so than a downhill guy. Good vertical, really, really good broad jump, 10'5" in the broad jump, and only 6'2", and he's strong in the upper body with 27 reps on the bench. With having a little bit short arms, but that's still good power. So I think Malik Jefferson has kind of become a guy who's easily going to be had in the second round now. But I think we're going to get good value from him because other guys have jumped him, whereas his stock is kind of dropped because other guys have moved ahead of him. But I don't think he's done anything to drop it himself. There's other guys outperforming him, but what that means is he'll become good value on draft day.
Yeah, for sure. He's a guy like secretly I've wanted like the Lions to take in round 2 if he's there because like he has fallen off. Like players like Rashaan Evans who just like, it's justifiable that you can say he's a little bit better or whatever you want to say. I mean, he's definitely a talented linebacker, but you look at Malik Jefferson, he was a first-round pick months ago, and now here we are. He is being discussed as a mid-second-round pick somewhere, but I liked what I saw with him on film. I thought he blitzed well. I thought he took on blocks pretty well. I love when guys just it looks natural when they're scraping over the top and they're filling and doing those things, and he does that. And I think he does actually okay in coverage. I just wonder, where's like the natural fit for him to play? Is he going to stand up and rush off the edge, or is he going to be like a Mike linebacker? Or I don't think he's got the size or really the mental processing to do that. But weak side linebacker, I'm okay with it. If you want to play
the will, I really like him at the will.
Yeah, if that's where you want to play him, I think that's pretty ideal.
Yeah, and his speed and size combo, I think screams pro linebacker.
Yeah, so I mean, he's definitely one of the forgotten guys. I mean, do the Patriots potentially look at him at the end of round 1?
I was kind of thinking that the 49ers pick round 2, pick 9. Is it pick 9 or pick 11? I don't know how the coin toss worked, but either way, it's pick like 40 something. I was kind of thinking at that point in time.
It could happen. I think they're pick 9. They're pick 9. But I mean that could happen to be a replacement for Reuben Foster, depending on how all that works out. And he would be a great.
Yeah, the Patriots have the Niners second round pick for the Jimmy Garoppolo trade.
Oh, right. So you're talking the Patriots taking it, not the. I thought you were saying the 49ers. No, you're right. That's good. That's probably going to happen, actually.
This is a Patriots podcast. I don't know how many times I have to reiterate this, but
it's not Locked On Patriots, though. We cannot do that. That's like copyrighted.
It's cover the Patriots.
No, man, you're going to make the Buffalo Bills fans so angry.
It's pick 43, so that is round 2, pick 11.
Oh. Well, that's like 4 picks after James Washington goes to the Bears at pick 39, just like Marquise Lee did a couple years ago in the draft at pick 39 to the Jaguars. Funny how that works out. Any other linebackers that really stood out? I think we kind of touched all the guys that really stood out. Oren Burks was a guy out of Vanderbilt that just was an athletic freak at 6'3", 233, 33 and 3/8 arms. He ran a 4.59. 40, 18 reps in the bench, which isn't terrible, but it's doable. 39.5-inch vertical, 10.11 in the broad jump, ridiculous. 3-cone was 6.82 and 4.15 in the shuttle. So he's an athletic freak. He's probably going to play a Will Backer somewhere, and he's going to be getting to the flats pretty quick.
Yeah. So every you move on to corners, I want to talk about my guy Psycho T. Tony Brown out of Alabama with the 4.35 40. He was my pick to run the fastest 40. He did not run it. I think he was off by 0.03. So this is a guy, we had questions about his weight, but he's 5'11 and 7/8, so he's 6 feet. He's 199. He's 200. He'll be listed on his rookie roster as 6 foot 200, right. Which is great size for a corner. Phenomenal size for a corner. Pretty long arms, better than average sized hands. A 4.3 40. A good 3-cone drill, a good 20-yard shuttle at 4.11. What doesn't make sense to me about Tony Brown is He is a 31-inch vertical, but then a 4.340. I don't understand that. How a guy can have a 92 percentile 40 and then a 6 percentile vertical jump. Doesn't make much sense to me. But I do think that as far as me being excited for his combine based on his track numbers was justified in that 40-yard dash, in that three-cone drill, and in his way in at 6', 200. So I think that Tony Brown is a guy who's going to play kind of that overhang spot, that nickel corner where he can blitz off the edge. You know, he can be a hitter. He can kind of come downhill and play the run while also playing the pass as far as the slot guys or even maybe the tight ends. You know, he has good size. He might be able to D up some tight ends. So I definitely think Tony Brown had a good combine.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers look good. I for as yoked as he is, I thought he was going to have a better bench, 14 reps. I mean, it's more than I'm ever going to do. But I mean, we talked about how big his upper body was, and he only came out with 14. Jair Alexander had 14 reps, you know, who also had a very good combine, by the way. 4.38 40, 35-inch vertical, 6.71 in the three-cone, and the short shuttle, 3.98. That is just ridiculous for a corner. And, I mean, he's quick. He's had some medical issues. Jair Alexander tested very well. As far as Tony Brown, I'm going to still say it's going to stay the same for me, third, fourth round range. I think Alexander's a first rounder, back end of the first round. What are your thoughts on Alexander?
Yeah, I think Alexander, you know, is definitely a first rounder, definitely in consideration for a top 3 spot. I would probably have him at CB3 at the moment. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think he had a great workout. He's a guy who he's pretty fluid in his hips, and he's a guy, you know, I like to see my corners chirp a little bit, and he's a guy who definitely does that on film.
Yeah,
which is definitely an upgrade as far as his like swagger and his moxie out in the field. I think, you know, he's a target if he survives the end of the first round. Kind of concerns about his size. That is going to be a target for the Patriots. Going to be a target for a lot of teams who are kind of missing that one corner spot to get him over the hump to the Super Bowl.
Right. Well, you know what I'm confused with, and it's my cornerback number 4, and that's Mike Hughes out of Central Florida. He came in at 5'10", almost exactly, 189. And this is a guy that I've got to think is going to be playing on the outside because I don't like the idea of him playing in the slot. And he came out and he ran a 4.53 40, which is not bad. He had 20 reps in the bench, which is great. 35.5-inch vertical. He did 6.7 in the three-cone and 4.13 in the short shuttle. So the quickness is definitely there. So maybe he can translate to the slot, but it doesn't show on film. I think he's a guy that can play outside, but 189, that's a little concerning to me. I mean, I don't know if I can trust that in the slot. And I don't know if he's actually going to be a first-round pick at this point. I mean, not saying the numbers are bad. The numbers are great, but as far as height, weight, does that translate to a first-round corner?
I don't think so. If he went out and ran a Denzel Ward-esque 4.32 at that size, then that changes something. If you're smaller but you have the quickness, kind of as the way that you're going to win the routes, that makes a little bit more sense to me. But if you're 5'10", 189, and you quote unquote only run a 4.5, would you say 4.53?
Yeah,
that is a little concerning because he isn't ultra quick. He's quick, but he's not ultra fast compared to the other corners, and he doesn't have the elite size. So he's definitely going to have to work with technique, you know, pristine, perfect technique.
Right, and then you talk about Denzel Ward, 5'10" and 7/8, so 5'11", 183 pounds. I mean, that's very undersized, but he ran a 4.32 40. And, I mean, he had a 39-inch vertical, 11.4 in the broad jump. I mean, explosive. So that definitely works out, and it translates on film too because, I mean, he plays the ball pretty well, and he's got fluid hips. He does things properly that you want to see out of a guy. So I think he's still a guy that's probably going to go in the top 20 somewhere. But 183, I just can't wrap my head around that. I don't want guys flirting around the 180s. If you're 195, 200, all right, I can work with that. It's just interesting. A guy that measured in at over 200 though is a safety, Justin Reed out of Stanford. He was 6 foot, 207. I mean, he really won the day for the safeties, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean,
he came out, he ran a 4.4 40 flat, and he had 16 reps in the bench. He had 36.5-inch vertical, 10.8 broad jump, 6.65 in the three-cone, and a 4.15 in the short shuttle. So the numbers stand out athletically. He's there. He does pretty well in coverage. I liked what I saw from him on tape, and I think this kind of justifies it that I think I'm probably going to have him as my safety number 3.
Yeah, I mean, Derwin James obviously had a great day. He's an alien. I mean,
Yeah.
he's an absolute freak of nature. Just it's like it's almost not explainable. As far as like his 40, his broad jump, his bench press at his size. But one guy I do want to touch on, not to like change the subject, is my guy CB1 Isaiah Oliver. Just because I want to talk about how I made the comment that his arms he slaps his kneecaps when he walks, is how long his arms are.
Yeah.
33.5-inch arms, 97th percentile. 80-inch wingspan, 98th percentile for the corners. His length at his size at 6 foot 200 pounds, and he has big hands, and he runs a 4.5 40, which isn't great. You know, we just mentioned Mike Hughes, but he has the size, he has the length that we know how he's going to win at the next level.
Right.
I really, really like that out of Isaiah Oliver.
Yeah, no, and like we were talking about, I've been sitting on the fence this whole time with like Mike Hughes and Isaiah Oliver and where to put them. And I think I said Mike Hughes was CB3. I meant CB4, by the way, because Alexander's CB3. But you know, between Oliver and Hughes, it's always been borderline. Who's number 4? Who's number 5? And I've always gone back and forth. But I like the tape on Mike Hughes. But now I see the size, and I'm like, I don't know. Oliver's checking in at 201. I mean, that is ridiculous for a guy that's as long as he is, and he ran better than Mike Hughes did. So, I mean, I think he's more gifted athletically. I think he's a very good, open field tackler. I think he does some things properly. And, I mean, I think he could turn into a lockdown, high-ceiling corner.
Oh, yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, I mentioned that his ceiling, Oliver's ceiling is like top 5. He could be a premier corner.
Yeah.
In the NFL because of his physical profile. He has the all-around athleticism, being a decathlete. I mean, he has the highest ceiling of all the corners in the class. And once he gets drafted to New England and they coach him up, he will be the number 1 corner.
Oh my God, this is turning into a Patriots podcast, and I hate every minute of it.
It already is a Patriots podcast.
It is not. It is not. We cannot do that to our listeners. We cannot torture them like that, okay? But with Oliver too, though, like in the drills today, though, there was times he looked stiff. He played a little high. So I think good coaching can do that. Patriots obviously can do it. So let's have them do it. And it's funny because I'm working on my post-combine mock draft, and that's who's drafting Isaiah Oliver. So it's all coming together. I'm a Patriots fan. Let's go, Tom Brady. But yeah, I mean, the combine, it's over. I don't think I don't really have anybody else to talk about. We could be here all day. There were so many players, and this has already been an hour-long podcast about the combine. So hopefully people will still be listening at this point. But, I mean, I don't have anything else. You got anything else?
I got one last guy to talk about. Actually, right. I have 2. First, Mike McCray, my guy out of Michigan. I think he had a good overall combine. His relative athletic score at MathBomb was over 5 points, which is at a 10-point scale, means over 5 means you're above average athlete for your position. So he's an above average athlete overall for linebackers. I think that bodes well for his draft stock. And he had a good broad jump. He had a good shuttle, which is huge for linebackers, and you change of direction. He came in at 243 pounds, which is good. Long arms. I really liked what I saw out of him. And then I want to talk about your boy, Godwin. We don't know how to say his last name.
Oh, man.
Lightning when he runs.
Yeah. Like a lightning out of, dude, it's unreal how fast he is. Like when I put on the Northwestern tape, I was like, whoa, this guy's pretty fast, man. Like he's standing out. And to see him at 4.44 official time is fantastic.
13 pounds too.
Yeah, and 35.5-inch vertical and a 10.8 broad jump. Like, don't even get me going on the 3-cone. It's 6.56.
3-cone drill, 96th percentile for the season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's fat. He is lightning.
Yeah, I mean, I like the things that I saw with Justin Reed, and I didn't want to bring up Godwin simply because I can't say his last name, and I'm not even going to attempt it. And to further on Mike McCray, I mean, he tested well too. 4.76 is reasonable off the edge. He's going to be a 3-4 outside backer. Book it to the Baltimore Ravens, and I mean that's where he's going to go. So that's
funny because we mentioned the Baltimore Ravens on the last podcast, maybe it was 2 ago, when we were talking about Mike McCray, and it didn't even click in my mind that that's the Harbaugh connection.
Yeah.
Didn't even think about that.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
was like, yeah, he actually sounds like a Raven now that you mentioned it.
Yeah.
Like kind of like, and then I was like, afterwards, I'm like, oh, the hard was. I was like, that would make perfect sense. And then I started thinking about all the other Michigan guys, and they're probably going to end up in Baltimore. But
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty funny. I didn't even realize it. But yeah, third round, fourth round Ravens. McCray's on the board.
Oh yeah, for sure. And he'll be on the board, and he'll be McFadden's going to run the thing up to the podium for everybody with his cement block feet, which I guess we could talk about him, and we'll end it at that. Travaris McFadden Tarvaris McFadden absolutely just looking out of shape. I mean, he looks like you when you run, Brad, but he ran a 4.6740 official. His second run was 4.76. He did have a nice vertical at 38.5, but he didn't do any of the other agility drills and things like that, rightfully so, because he's not in shape.
Yeah, he's the anti-Tony Brown.
Yeah, I mean, at 6'2", 204 is like, where do you play him? You're not going to play him at corner with that speed. He's probably going to translate over to safety. But this was a guy that was a top 15 pick a year ago.
So I mean, I think he started as a freshman, and he was like he was an extremely good player. Last year, like 2 years ago, he had a great year. And then this past season, he really fell off. His play fell off, kind of like we touched on earlier with Florida State, and how kind of everyone on the team kind of had a down year, except the freshman running back. But basically, he was the prototype of that kind of a down year for Florida State, and he has his measurements are phenomenal,
through the roof, dude. It's like
6'2", 204, long arms, big wingspan, big hands. And he has a good vertical, and his broad jump is pretty decent. It's like literally he has everything except the long speed. So I think that, like you said, maybe as like a corner or as a safety, but I'm still not going to write off the idea of him playing corner because.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're going to play him there,
right? If he could be in a press man system, it's kind of like his position might be kind of dependent on the scheme fit and what the team's projecting to do. I guess I could say that for everybody, but especially for him because teams aren't going to like that long speed. Like, is he going to be able to get beaten deep? But is he going to be drafted to a team who's going to play a lot of press man? Is he going to draft to the Seahawks? He could fit that system with his length.
Right. And I mean, and Richard Sherman's one of the comps that comes up for him on the mock draftable as far as the comparison from the combine. But like McFadden's a guy just like the long speed's not there. And it's not like if he ran a sub 4.5, we wouldn't even be talking about it, or I'm sorry, if he ran a sub 4.6, we wouldn't even be talking about it. But if, he barely ran a sub 4.7, like, I think they actually were like, we feel bad for this guy. We're going to just give him this. And I don't know, man. It just did not look fluid at all in anything that he was doing. But, the measurements are there, and it's like the talent is there because you've seen it. So I really want to know where he goes, and I want to know where he falls because, like, the talent is there all the way across the board, but this guy's probably not going to go until round 3, round 4. I would be shocked if he was taken in round 2. Yeah,
so I actually a couple of times had done with the Raiders had traded it back up in the end of the second round to take him at the end of the second round because I've seen you can see he's a big guy, but now I would not touch it. I would not touch him in the first 2 rounds. I don't know if I touch him in the first 2 days.
Yeah, I mean it'd be tough. I mean if you've got some extra picks at the back end of the 3rd round or something, and like let's say you're I don't know the Jets, the Bills, or Browns. The Browns could definitely afford to take them just because they have so many picks, but. The Packers, too, they've got a ton of picks, too, now. So they could be a team that would be interested in a player like that because they need some secondary help. And going there, I would think, being a player that gets coached in Green Bay, you're going to probably have to fix some things. You're not going to play there for very long. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting. He was a guy, though, that really stood out today just with a bad 40, didn't look athletic at all. I don't know if he's got the versatility to play in a ton of different schemes or different positions, but he could be a guy that translates to safety. He's probably going to play corner to start, but we'll see. You got anybody else?
I do not, but I do want to say one thing. It's like Travaris McFadden running a 4.640. Like, do you know how fast a 4.640 is? And we're like getting on him for how slow he is. I think that's kind of insane. Just sitting back and thinking about it. I play.
It's because of the position, man. That's what.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get it, and like I said, I'm definitely going to knock him down because I know he doesn't have the long speed that other corners have. But like in the grand scheme of the world, he probably has a faster 40 than like 98% of people on Earth.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
we're like saying he's too slow.
Yeah, I know. But that's the thing, though, too. Like, you go to the NFL and you're playing against the elite. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And those guys are fast, and we know it. And we see it. I mean, we see guys like Vita, man, running a 5.140. Get out of here. The guy's 340 pounds. You know, we got McFadden at 204, barely getting under 4.7. I mean, you're not far behind Villa at this point, you know. So
yeah,
and you're 140 pounds less than him. So I mean, I don't know. I don't want to bash the guy because the talent is definitely there and the upside is there, but he's had a really weird year, and I'm just wondering, is it something off the field or what it could be? But yeah, I don't have anybody else. The combine, Christmas Eve, it's done. Now we wait. We get through the smoke screens together, and we have some fun as we get to the draft. Coming probably later this week, we'll have another episode, probably talking the draft options for teams and things like that. What are some things that you got coming out for potentially cover1.net? I know you had the receivers that just came out, and Mike McCray came out. So where else we got?
Right. So my last article, for those who don't know, I looked at the myth that there are no wide receiver ones in this class. I listed 11 guys and compared them to current wide receiver ones in their play style, in their physical profiles. So I think that those are guys potentially who could produce at that number one option for a team at the next level, you know, depending on scenario, regardless of circumstance. I think the next thing I want to do is I want to debunk one more myth. I don't know how quickly this is going to come out, but I want to talk about how so many people say that you never take a running back in the first round, and I want to fillet them. So I think that's going to be my next. I'm subtweeting right now. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I'll tell you.
I think that's my next article.
We should probably collab on it, actually, because I had the same concept, and I've charted every single running back and receiver from 2007 in the NFL draft in the first round. And dude, the numbers are surprisingly lopsided. Like, I'm not saying you can't take a running back. I definitely think you can. But I looked at like the players, and like I'm looking at like their career, and I'm like, there's no way that these receivers are worse than these running backs. So I don't know. We can talk about it more off air. As for me, I've got Dorrance Armstrong scouting report working on right now. I've also got a mock draft that I'm working on to try and get done. Hopefully I can try and get it done tonight and get it out to you guys for the morning. So you can listen to this, read that, and bash me and hate me for your team's picks. But yeah, we got scouting reports on the way every single day. We're working on them. Draft options, mock drafts, and of course, Cover One, the podcast. For Brad Kelly, I am Russell Brown. This is Cover One, the podcast.